One. Okay, we're live. Good evening, everyone. This is Attorney Vincent Davis, and this is The Secret: How to Fight CPS and Win. I'm joined tonight by my my co-host, Miss Cassandra Woodard. Hello, Cassandra. How are you? Might want to be unmuted. Let's see if we can unmute Cassandra.
Good.
No,
How are you doing?
good. I'm doing good. Good. So, what's been going on recently?
um, Not much. Just trying to get things done that I need to get done.
Good. You know, I got an email from you recently,
Hmm.
regarding a 388 that we're preparing for you. Have you seen the final version?
No, I have not. I've been told that I need to finish one more thing and email it, and
Okay,
then
and email it to us. Okay, very good.
yeah,
I can't wait to file that and to get in court for you
yeah.
with
I'll
respect
be
to your.
typing it up. The stuff that I need, I'll be typing it up tonight, sending it, and then tomorrow she said she'll review it. So,
How are your visitation going with your children?
um, going pretty well with one of them. For one of them, only one of them.
Hmm.
The other one is kind of like not wanting to talk to me at all.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Do you
Yeah,
have
she's
do you have monitored or unmonitored visits?
monitored visits.
Who monitors them? The
The
foster
foster
parent?
mom.
Okay.
Hmm.
And up to this point, that foster parent has been friendly for us, right?
Yes, very cooperative. She
Okay.
knew me before the whole case, so she's been really good with us.
Okay. All right. Very good. So I can't wait to get that filed and get into court and maybe have a hearing trying to get those kids back, or at the very least, unmonitored visits.
Yeah,
I wanted to try to do it so that we can get something for you before Christmas. At this point in time every year, everyone's rushing to get liberalized visits, liberalized visits during
hmm,
the Christmas and the New Year's holidays. So I hope that we're going to be able to do that.
yeah.
Anything in the CPS news? CPS in the news recently?
I was actually trying to look that up real quick because I just got realized that I got the newsletter for today. I was reading a couple things. Let me see if I was reading. So I was reading something about um, foster parents told CPS she was moving across the state before alleged kidnapping. A foster parent actually kidnapped a child while in her custody when CPS was referring to give the child back to the biological mother. She ended up kidnapping the kid and running across the states with him.
The foster
And that
parent did?
happened yeah, and that happened in Washington State.
Huh,
And
that's
they're not
interesting.
putting out any Amber Alerts or anything. They're not even
What?
really doing much.
Why?
Hmm?
Do you know
I
why?
have no
Why?
idea. I was reading about it, but I didn't finish the article quite yet.
Right.
But yeah, the foster mother and the biological mother gave them a warning about the foster mother before all this happened, and that was in July, and it just barely happened. She had some suspicions of the foster mom being kind of, sketchy about taking her child out of the state, and she told the CPS worker, and they didn't do anything about it. And then now she kidnapped the child after it was about to be given back to the biological mother, and then they're not putting out any Amber Alerts or saying that anything's really, it's not a big deal, but of course it is to the biological mother, but they're not making a big deal out of it.
What state is this?
Washington.
You know, when you do some research, see if you can track that mother down on, on the internet and see if she wants to come on, one of our shows and talk about that. Or perhaps, she might be interested in filing some type of, lawsuit against the agency and against CPS and the foster mother for kidnapping the child. I mean, this is not the first time in all of the years I've been doing this that I've heard of foster parents doing kind of, wacky things. And I guess the excuse is, or the reason is, when you take care of a child, no matter who you are, you become attached to that child. It's just basic human nature. And sometimes, they cross the line and they can't keep it separate because they're supposed to be promoting family reunification services. And I hear a lot of stories that, they're actually not promoting, but they're actually inhibiting, um, preventing family reunifications. Anyway, we have Miss G with us tonight. Miss G, hello. How are you?
I'm good, thanks.
Good. You seem so pleasant this evening. You have any
I'm
comment?
always present.
You got your festive Christmas tree up and the star at the top. That's very nice. Very nice. I was just contemplating myself about doing a Christmas tree this year. Cassandra, are you doing a Christmas tree?
Oh yeah, I have one.
You have one that's
I
up
decorated
already?
my whole house already.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Sweet. Miss G, what do you think about that foster mother kidnapping the child up in Washington?
I know you said that foster parents, when you get attached to a child, it's kind of hard to let go. Well, how about the mother that is bonded with her child and they steal her child from her? How is
Good
that?
point. Good point. I
You
mean,
know, I don't
Yeah.
have
absolutely
sympathy for
true.
no damn foster parents because they're not the actual biological parent. So therefore, I care more about the biological parent than the foster parent.
They actually finally they at first they didn't put an Amber Alert out, but then they finally did. And I don't know if you could see it, but that's the child and the foster mother, and it's saying if you've seen them to contact
Yeah,
Mount Vernon, Washington State Police.
yeah, but what I don't understand is why Attorney Davis actually would have that opinion that you can understand that you become bonded with a foster child. I don't understand that. I don't
Me
get it.
too.
I don't get it. I guess I don't know. Maybe my mindset is completely different than most people. But
It might have gone over your head, but you want me to try to explain it?
yeah, please do. Like you
Okay.
always do. You know, everything you say to me goes,
You know, whenever a person is taking care of a child, that person can become physically and psychologically bonded to the child. Now, does that mean they're supposed to kidnap the kid and not give the kid back? Does that mean that there are, supposed to be interfering with the reunification process? Obviously, no. No on both. Um, and what this foster parent has done, um, as reported by Cassandra, obviously is not only probably illegal, but it's violating the child's and the parents' civil rights. And I think that the mother should be, should prosecute this and push for prosecution. And that's why I was mentioning to Cassandra, if there's any way that you can track down the mother, through the media and try to contact her, I'd love to have her on the show so that she could speak about this ordeal. You've been waiting all this time as a mother to get your child back placed with you. And then when that happens, the foster mother takes off with the kid. I mean, how I can only imagine the heartbreak. And who knows what that foster mother's going to do, you know? You never know what people are going to do in these situations. She might end up hurting herself or the child. And then things get, just out of control.
I
You know,
hope
I
she hurts herself.
I'm sorry?
I said, I hope she hurts herself, just not the child.
Right. The Here's a question that Macy had. Macy says, and by the way, if anyone has questions, go ahead and post it tonight. It says, are family reunification services only done when the child is taken? Well, yes, when the child is taken out of your custody, family reunification services are given, or supposed to be given anyway. If the child remains in your care, okay, you're supposed to be given something called family maintenance services. So, and in court, they're, the at least in California, they're called FR and FM services. And then Macy says, or with a case where they've made the child and mother leave their home, shouldn't that be family reunification services too? Yes, you're right. Presumably, they left the father at the home, but the social workers are supposed to be offering family reunification services. I was just talking to someone tonight about that, about family reunification services, and it became apparent to me that the person has talked to a lot of people and that they've all given her different information. Social worker gave certain information, the court appointed attorney gave certain information, and of course, I gave her certain information that was, drastically different from what the first two people were opining in the case. So, you know, there are certain ways you can do a case if you're a court appointed attorney, if you're a social worker. And sometimes, people are like water. When they come down the hill, water finds the easiest way down the hill, right? Simple physics. Well, sometimes people are like that and they want to solve the problem the easiest way. And the easiest way may not be you getting your child back when you should get the child back. Here is something Thomas Lopez says, taking or talking the child or taking the child and running is kidnapping. Thomas, you're absolutely correct. It is kidnapping, and that's a criminal offense, and she probably should be prosecuted. I'm just worried about what's going to happen to the child. You know, here's a lady that's on the run, knowing that she's probably committed a felony, a serious felony, that she could end up in jail. I mean, what is she going to do? Is she going to hurt herself? Is she going to hurt the child? Are they just going to disappear? People can disappear with the child. Many years ago, I was involved in a case where the child was kidnapped by the father, and they disappeared for years, and DCFS or CPS never knew where they were. Eventually, they did get caught, but because they decided to come back from where they were hiding out, and they got a traffic stop, and cop ran the license plate and ran the IDs and realized that these two parents and the child were wanted by the juvenile court. There were warrants issued and outstanding. Don't forget, here's Deidre. Deidre says,
Mr.
good
David?
evening. My favorite three people on YouTube. Yes. Did somebody have something? Go ahead, Cassandra.
I do. Okay, for when you have reunification services and there's and that's when the kids are removed. I understand that. But like when they're not removed, you said they were called something else. Is that the same thing as being in a case plan and a safety plan? Because a safety plan is for when you still have your children, and a case plan is when you don't have your children, right?
Well, technically, you can have a case plan either way when you have FR services and FM services. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But safety plan usually means the child is going to remain with you. Okay. And they're going to come up with a plan to keep the child safe while the child's still living with you. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Did you want to say something, Miss G?
No.
Okay. Here is Macy. CPS is taking years off my life and then years away from my babies with their mother. Macy, I don't know if you want to tell us, but are the children with you now or are they not with you? And how many years has it been? Here's another comment by Macy. I just found a job today and I start Monday. Congratulations. I'm 29 weeks pregnant and have to support my babies and I in another county away from the father. I'm also 20 years old, slowly dying from stress. I can only imagine. I can only imagine. We had some shows on before about how to deal with the stress of a CPS case. And I don't know, you might want to contact Grace at vincentwdavis.com. She can send you some links on some of the things that you might want to do. All right. Being a mother and having the possibility of losing my youngest child to adoption, which is completely wrong by all avenues, the thought of disappearing with my child has become a constant thought. Deirdre, I can tell you for sure that you're not the only one that thinks that way or thinks of those things. But please be careful. There was something in the news that I saw today on Yahoo where CPS, I guess, dictated that the mother can't let her 3 children, ages 6, 8, and 9, play outside by themselves. And this was in Pearisburg, Virginia. Social Services says kids must be watched at all times until they turn 13. Now, I don't know about Virginia, but I know that's not the law in California. But you have to be careful because, CPS has started to get pervasive and get in every area of our life. Macy says, I'm worried they're in the works to taking my baby at birth, but I've been told the most they may do is supervise me with my baby. Macy, I don't know who told you that because it's not accurate. Maybe on the facts of your case it's accurate, but theoretically, CPS can take your child away from you.
Um, why do you always have to bring the camera close to me? I mean, I don't want to see myself that close. But anyways, I got a call today from a mother that got her children back. And before she got her children back, I told her that once you get your kids back, be careful because they do come back and remove your children. They make up allegations, false allegations, what have you. I got a call today from this mother that I spoke with last year. She said she received her children in January of this year, the beginning of the year. They were removed from Riverside yesterday. And the reason for that removal is because the children were visiting the grandmother, the paternal grandmother, and the grandmother had her son there, who is the father. Now, she had an exit order stipulating that um, the children are allowed to visit the grandmother knowing that the father lives there, but the grandmother has to be present, and so does, or the mother has to be present. She has that order. The social worker all of a sudden goes in, makes an excuse that the mother should have notified her that the father lives there. Now it's in the order. So she sent me a copy of that order, and it's exactly what she said. What I want you guys to understand is that they do that. Every mother I spoke with throughout my entire time being with Davis, the same thing. Any mother that got her children back are they come back. The social worker, they change workers, by the way, and they change supervisors. Remember, they change workers and supervisors. All of a sudden, they go remove that child again. They make whatever fabrication or whatever delusional thoughts they have, they use it and twist everything around to take that child. So that child now is in foster home. But the child is in an adoptive foster home, mind you not. Now, there's no allegations of abuse, neglect, nothing. The children are healthy, but again, they failed to follow the court order. Now, my question is to Attorney Davis, what would you do in this situation?
Well, the situation you described sounded like the mother is complying with the court order, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And have they taken the kids already?
Yes, yesterday from Riverside.
Okay. So if I'm the mother, I would get an attorney that knows CPS law, expert in it, go to the first hearing and argue that the children should be immediately released because the mother was complying with the court order.
I know she's hiring us, so
Okay.
um, but
So the
but
other thing that I would
yesterday,
consider, the other thing that I would consider, hold on, there's one other thing, is to immediately consider filing some type of federal civil rights lawsuit against the social worker.
that's after.
You know, I
But see, the thing is, she has to get her kids back first. Why is she gonna? I mean, the main focus is to get the kids back again in her custody and sue the social workers. I believe she has an amazing lawsuit. In fact, I was talking to her with one of our coworkers, Yoli, on the phone with us as well. It was intense, but Deidre mentioned that on this comment uh, message here is that she should have called the police. Police will not do anything, Deidre. The police goes by whatever the social worker wants. The police is not going to help in that case. Am I right, Attorney Davis?
you know, it's relative. It's on a scale. There's nothing 100%. You know, most of the times the police will do what the social worker wants. But I've been involved in cases and I've seen, cases. They're not many, don't get me wrong, where the police has told the social worker, you're way out of line and not done anything. I mean, those cases are rare, but a lot of times the police will do what the social worker says. I mean, I was talking to someone recently, a few days ago, and the social worker brought the police to detain the child, and the allegations were that the house was filthy and unsanitary. That's what the social worker reported to the police. Police get there, walk in the house, and it's house is clean, well kept, food in the cupboards, food in the refrigerator, and basically told the lady that the social worker, we're not detaining this child. So you see, there's a problem that a lot of police officers have. If they go out to a home, especially if they don't have a warrant, all right, and they detain those kids, they're going to get sued. And these police officers aren't, they're not trying to buy a lawsuit by supporting some county social worker, right? So some of them, have sense enough occasionally to say, no, we're not going to do this because we're, basically they're thinking we're going to get sued. And, social workers, sometimes I've been involved in some lawsuits where the social worker blames the police officer. Now, it was the social worker who called the police officer to come out and do something. But when you get down to it in court for civil liability and civil rights, social worker wants to go, hey, I didn't do it. The police did it. Right. So there's that, they're always playing off one another.
No, that's not why. The reason they bring the police is to intimidate the parent. That's exactly why they bring the police along. And oftentimes the police are afraid of social workers to retaliate against their own family. And it's been done where the social worker went after the police officer that refused to go with her to remove a child without a court order. That was in San Bernardino. She went after his children. So therefore, a lot of cops are intimidated by social workers, so they do what the social workers want.
I think I agree with you. I think that happens a lot. There's a couple famous cases in the Ninth Circuit, the federal Ninth Circuit, where police and social workers were sued for a bad detention, and those cases say that both the social worker and the police are liable. Can be held liable for violating civil rights. I say this all the time, and I thought this issue had been resolved in our law, but social workers cannot come out and take your kids unless they have a court order or they have emergency, what they call exigent circumstances. And by the way, exigent circumstances is hard for a social worker to prove.
I know.
But I hear this all the time. I don't, Georgia, Miss G, I don't know if you hear this, but people tell me all the time they came and they detained my kid. And I said, well, did they show you a warrant? No. No, and sometimes the people know to ask for the warrant, and the social worker will say, "Well, I don't need one. It's an emergency situation," and it's not an emergency situation at all.
No.
I someone called me a couple of days ago, and the mother had a prior case where she lost 3 children because of drugs. The case closes, time goes by. The mother gets married again to someone different. 3 or 4 years goes by. The mother marries, some regular guy who doesn't have any, record or criminal history of using drugs, and they have a baby. The baby is born drug free. They can't. CPS came out and detained the child from the hospital without a warrant, and just said that based upon the mother's prior history, we have the right to take this kid. We think it's an emergency situation. The one flaw in that reasoning is not, first of all, it was false. But the one flaw, obvious flaw is, well, what about the dad? You can't detain from the dad, right? And, the law of, I think it's section 319 of the Welfare and Institutions Code, and there's something similar, I believe, in every state in this country. The social worker has to prove that they've taken steps to protect the child before they detain the child. In other words, to work in this particular case, they could have worked with the father and said, "Hey, you got to keep the kid. You can keep the kid temporarily for the next couple of days until we go to court. If you do A, B, and C." In this particular case, it wasn't offered at all. In my mind and in my opinion, that's a pure violation of the law.
I understand that, but a regular mother, an ordinary mother, innocent mom that is dealing with the social workers, and they go to court, the judges don't listen to the parent. They automatically assume that the social worker is giving them the right information and that they did the due diligence to make sure the children are safe with family members. Social workers don't get incentives from the federal government unless the children are placed in a foster home. That's why they tell family members to become foster parents. And a lot of people, they question, why does my aunt have to be a foster parent in order for her to have, her little nephew? Because they're not going to get the incentives from the federal government unless they are foster parents. A lot of people fail to understand that part. However, it takes a while for them to understand it. But a normal mother going to court, the judge doesn't believe a mother that has no criminal record, no drug history, doesn't even drink alcohol, good standing member of society with a great job, great home, great everything. But yet the judge treats that woman, that mother, as a criminal. And if you said, Mr. Davis, that, the judge has to rule on, facts, like, kind of like, show me facts and I'll make the ruling, right? Where is the facts?
Oh,
If
I
there's
didn't
no
say facts. I said evidence.
Okay, evidence. Where's the evidence? There's no evidence. The only evidence is that the social worker wrote down her delusional thoughts on paper. Now, there is no evidence. Evidence, none. But yet the judge sides with the social worker. Explain that to the normal person, parent who's fighting for their children.
It's a difficult explanation, I can assure you. Sometimes, in our society, judges wear the black robes, and they have a great deal of discretion that we as a society have given them. Maybe too much discretion. And sometimes they are able to make decisions that I don't agree with. Has it happened to me? Yes, many times. A judge will make a decision that I don't agree with. The problem is I'm not wearing the black robe. The only thing that we can do is we can appeal. We can file an appeal, file a writ, which I tell people all the time, but I don't know if, that is sinking in. A lot of people, this maybe 2 or 3 months ago, a lady in our office, a client in our office, had a great case for appeal. But she was so broken, and they broke her, and all she wanted to do was basically roll up in a ball and go hide because she was so disappointed. So, a lot of times I can tell people things that are, my opinion about the law, but that doesn't mean that they're always going to follow it. It's their life. When I was a young attorney, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years of practice, I used to get upset when people didn't follow my advice. But over the years, 30, it's 36 years now, people have to make their own decisions. And a lot of times they're making decisions based upon things that you and I will never know.
No, they're making decisions based on their families and friends. And this girl that I spoke with today, by the way, um, when I told her that before a long time ago, I said, when you get your kids back, please understand they're gonna retaliate against you. They're gonna come back. And she said, Miss G, and I tell you this as God is my witness. And Yoli was on the phone with us. She said, Miss G, you were right. They came back. And the reason they do is because they want to recycle what they gave. They want to recycle. They want to get it back so that they can make more money, more funding. Then they put the children in an adoptive home. Why put the children in an adoptive home when you took the children illegally to begin with, without the judge even approving it, right? It doesn't make sense, right? So now, when she told her, I'm going to sue you for this, the social worker looked at her and said, go ahead and try. The supervisor, by the way, she said, go ahead and try. We're untouchable. Now, if you take on her case and a civil case and you tell them they're going to say hearsay, right? They're going to say hearsay. But if she records the conversation between her and the supervisor, it's called illegal. You can't record without their knowledge. But if you give them knowledge, right, then they're not going to say what they really want to say. Because when you catch a person off guard, the truth comes out, right? But if you give them a hint of what you're trying to do, they're not going to bring the truth out. Correct? Now, when it's a government official that you're dealing with, which I consider a social worker or government official, right? Why can't you record
Absolutely.
them? Why can't you record them? Because it states that you can. But when it comes to the social workers, we were told, no, we cannot record these monsters doing their nasty shit. So tell me, Mr. Davis, why is it that it's not against the law to really record a government official, but when it comes to CPS, the law protects them? Does that make sense? I don't know.
Well, I kind of get what you're saying, but it's one of those things that I tell people all the time. And I've mentioned this to you before. You're pointing out something that's unfair in our society and in our laws. But it's just not happening in CPS. Happens everywhere. All you got to do is turn on the news. Fox, CNN, MSNBC, your local news. You're going to see things that are unfair government-wise every day. So it's not that you should ignore this, but understand that it happens. And here's the thing. Here's what my grandmother used to tell me. Don't get mad. Get even. So if you feel that the government is violating your rights, that's why we have 42 USC 1983, the Federal Civil Rights Law. So, you have a right to go to court and try to get remedied.
I honestly, every call I make today, the stories that I hear it affects me as a woman, as a mother, to hear these mothers cry to me all day long. And it's just horrible how the social workers still continue to get away with it. You tell us to vote and et cetera, but everyone that sits on that bench is corrupt. Everyone that sits on the damn bench in CPS courts are corrupt. I don't care what anyone tells me. They're all corrupt. It's like The social workers are the ones wearing the black robe, like I said many times, not the judges. So, what is the judge's job? That is my question, and no one has ever really answered that for me. What is the judge's job in CPS court? What is their fucking job?
You want me to answer that?
Yes, I do.
Okay. So this is my opinion. The job of a judge in a CPS court is to decide disputes of law and fact and to try to keep children safe. That's my opinion. And, in my opinion, there's some that are better than others. So, I don't know how many cases you've done, but I've done thousands. Now, here's the problem, and I'm going to point this out to you, and I want you to think about this. In a lot of cases where people say to me, the judge was corrupt, that's not the case at all. The reason why the judge made the decision is because you and your lawyer didn't show up with the right evidence. And so the judge is going to make a decision based upon what he or she believes to be the law and the evidence presented.
Wow.
I told you this story one time about a guy who came into my office on a Saturday morning without an appointment. And he had just lost in court the day before. And he swore up and down to me that the judge was corrupt. And I asked him to explain that. I said, well, what happened? He says, well, I showed up with all the documents, and he had them with him, school records and medical records that proved that the mother was not a fit mother and that he should have custody, right? That's what the document said. And he told me something. He said, the judge wouldn't consider these documents. And then I told him something that he didn't really want to hear. I told him, well, did you comply with the California Evidence Code that would allow those documents to be admitted into evidence? You know what he told me? He says, what are you talking about? Oh, he didn't know the rule. He didn't know the rule of evidence, that what you have to do to bring documents into court. So the judge properly decided not to consider that evidence. But as far as he was concerned, the judge was corrupt. And I see a lot of cases. Sometimes you're watching cases while you wait for your particular case to be called. And I notice that. I notice that a lot. I notice sometimes the right argument isn't made, or the argument that I would make isn't made. This is 36 years for me. I'm going to make different arguments and, different persuasive techniques than a 10-year attorney, than a 5-year attorney. It's just, a matter of experience. So it's not all the time the judge. It isn't. I know it's convenient for us to blame the judge. It's convenient for us to blame the attorney. It's convenient for us never to blame ourselves. But when you go to court, these are real legal cases. Procedure and evidence matter. Miss G, you watched me in the court yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
I won that case because I was able to keep evidence out by objecting to it.
Correct.
On many occasions. Now, if I had sat there and said nothing, the client would have lost. The client would not have blamed me because the client doesn't even know what I did wrong. The client would have blamed the judge and the system because the client didn't know that I made a mistake on her case.
Do you believe that a judge can be paid off?
I do. I've seen it in the news.
And it does happen. You know that, right? In family court, it happens a lot.
I have seen that. I have seen FBI reports, and from what they're talking about, it does happen. There was a big scandal in a local county where 730 evaluators, that perform custody and visitation recommendations,
Mhm,
apparently allegedly were being paid off,
mhm.
and it was being
That's
investigated by the authorities.
mhm.
So, do I think that people can be paid off? Yeah, I mean, look, we're human
We're not
beings,
talking about people. We're talking about people in authority.
right?
People
No,
that
no,
actually
people, but see,
control
that's just it.
families.
That's
Yeah,
just it. I don't think you realize this. People are people. It doesn't matter where they are or where they are on the totem pole. People are people. So you asked me the question, do I think judges can be paid off? They're people, and I've seen reports of things happening, all over the country.
I know.
There was that judge that he got convicted. He went to jail for like 10 years or something, but he was selling juveniles, allegedly selling juveniles to a local private like jail. So he was ruling on juveniles apparently in a delinquency type court. And then instead of, maybe giving them probation or this or that, they'd go to jail. And the people that owned that jail allegedly were paying him off. You can Google that. That's all in the news. So, yeah, I think that it happened. But here's what I want to tell you: you can't blame your loss on something like that where you have no evidence of it. What you have to do is look closely at your case and what you and your lawyer have strategized.
Hmm. The thing that really disgusted me is that there was a lady. I was watching the video on YouTube. She's a prostitute, and she got her kid back when the Fed broke into her home. I mean, the motel room. The 3-year-old was there watching their mother perform. Her mother perform, and CPS took the baby, the child, 3.5 years old, rather, and gave her the child back. I was shocked. And I see good parents, good mothers who are great parents that would not even hurt a fly, snatch their children from them because there's connection with the judge and their ex-spouse. And it just I don't understand this. And when they're discovered is too far off, meaning the damage has been done, the mother lost everything she had and still continues to fight for her children. But I do know you don't go to court for justice. So why do they call it the justice system?
Who
If
calls it
there's
the
no
justice
justice,
system? Who
it's I
calls it
saw
the
this I
justice system?
saw this paper in the courtroom one
Wait a
time.
minute, wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute. You're defining justice from your own mind and heart. And I've told you many times, justice is not what you think it is. You're giving it your own definition. And I've told you many times, I did a couple videos on YouTube. Everybody go to YouTube and look at it. And it's called What is Justice? Because it's not what you think. Don't get it, you know, what did a client tell me? Don't get it twisted, Miss G. You're
I
you're giving
understand. I
you give us
understand
your
there's no
definition.
justice. I understand. I understand that. I understand that.
Oh no, there's justice. It's just not defined the way you think it should be.
Right. No, I understand that it's not defined the way I think it should be. But good mothers lose their kids while other mothers who don't really care about their kids get their kids back.
I
Explain that.
agree. I agree. Yeah,
And
I've seen that
and
many times over the years. Many
right.
times.
And social workers place children with foster parents who actually have a background criminal record against them. M- There's an investigator that we use just was handling a case like that. The foster parent has his the foster mother and the foster father The foster father is a sex offender, and they place the children with them, with them. So how does that look like for the judge, or does the social worker brush it under the rug and they don't want the judge to know about it? But then again, some judges do know and they don't care.
I want to tell you a story. This happened
Oh God, I hate
recently.
them so much.
It happened recently, probably in the last couple of years. Well, maybe right before COVID. I represented a woman who was trying to go back to court, family law court, to get more visitation, to get unmonitored visitation. And the judge, prior to my involvement, had placed the child with the father. The father was a convicted sex offender
Hmm.
and was registered.
Hmm.
When I got on the case, I was flabbergasted. How could this happen? But when I started reviewing the case, my client had some, black marks herself.
Hmm.
Nothing about sexual abuse, but she had some black marks herself.
Hmm.
And when I went to do the hearing, the client just wanted one thing. She wanted unmonitored visits, and she wanted the children or the unmonitored visits with the child, and she wanted more time with the child. As a matter of fact, I didn't fill out the paperwork. She did that before she hired me. She just wanted me to be in court and do the hearing, the contested hearing. And I want to tell you that I kept beating that band, that drum. Like, this guy, judge, this guy's a convicted sex offender. How in the hell, you know, did this happen? And luckily, we were able to win, and we were able to get the unmonitored and the extended visits. But yeah, this kind of stuff happens. I won't say every day, but it happens. And it just depends on the facts and the circumstances of each case. Things that you and I pick out as being, unreal, and we could never see that. There's other things in the case that come up that you're not considering. Now, if I'm the judge, would I ever, place a child with a convicted sex offender? I'm not sure I'd do that, but I'm not a judge, so I don't have to worry about that.
Hmm.
So, but what I'm trying to say is there's so many facts and circumstances that we have to consider in order to win. In order to win.
And actually, like I was mentioning to people yesterday, just wow. Um, there is a lot of attorneys out there, you guys, that you think they know what they're doing, but they don't. So if you just want to hire an attorney to do your CPS case, please do not hire a family law attorney. Especially one that hasn't been around for long and he or she doesn't know about CPS laws or CPS jurisdictions, et cetera, et cetera. I'm not saying they're bad attorneys. I'm saying, but when you hire them, ask them, do they specify exactly what you want, and make sure that they specialize in that field, because the two courts are completely different night and day, and CPS court is higher than family law court. So do not think just because you have custody with CPS court that, I mean, with the family law court, that CPS cannot just come and take that custody away from you. So be very mindful, understand. Don't take advice from your family. Do not take advice from your best friend, your boyfriend, your girlfriend. All this crap is going to put you in fucking hell, because they're not attorneys. They don't know what they're doing. They're not qualified to give you advice. Only a qualified attorney can give you that advice. And when it comes to your children, you don't want to toy with those types of, you know.
Ms. G, before we end the show, I want to tell you a quick story. Man goes to the doctor, and the doctor says, "Hey, man, you need open heart surgery, or you're going to have a heart attack and possibly die." Man goes home, and the first person that he asks, should I have the open heart surgery, is his wife, who's not a doctor. The next person he asks is his best friend, who works for the post office. He's not a doctor. And based upon on that criteria, he makes a decision not to have the open heart surgery. 6 months later, he's dead. The mistake is, if you get a medical opinion, you probably want to get a second opinion from someone that has a medical, expertise. Probably a cardiologist, a specialist in hearts.
Mm-hmm.
But the same thing happens in legal cases.
Yep.
The first thing you're going to ask is, what should I do? I mean, you're gonna ask your best friend.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you're going to ask your best friend or your relative because you trust them.
Mm-hmm.
All right. You don't really trust some attorney that you've never met and don't know.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is that the friend or relative that you ask doesn't have any training or expertise.
Mm-hmm.
So just want to throw that out there, that story. We've come to the end. We're a little over this evening, but I want to thank everyone for watching. And Ms. G, I want to thank you for being my host this evening. And I want to thank in absentia Miss Cassandra Woodard for being my co-host as well. And apparently she's off the stream right now. But I do have a surprise for all of you. Within the next 24 hours, if you email Miss G and say, I want a copy, you are going to get a copy of my book, a digital copy of the book, How to Fight CPS and Win. And I'm going to post Miss G's email.
Oh, great.
There it is.
Great. Just great. Thank you. Appreciate that.
So, but Miss G, you can delegate this by sending it to Yasmin or Pilar in the office. So in the next only for the next 24 hours, if you email Miss G and say, I want a copy of the book, she will arrange for you to get a digital copy. If you don't do it by 8:00 tomorrow night, the offer is over. Okay? So I want to thank everybody for watching. We'll see you tomorrow night at 7 p.m. On these same stations. Good night, everyone.
Good night.